Hi, I still have a few of you who are still struggling with the process of reading inputs from the user. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's a little bit tricky in Java, so I want to show you how to do that. So typically, when you run your code, so far, you had been initializing data, for example, things like, A is equal to 3, and then maybe B is equal to 4, right? And you would do something like int total is just equal to A plus B or something like that. Okay, and then you would just basically, system out print to the user a window. Let me see if okay, a little bit slow here, but let's say total is, and I'm going to say just total. Okay, so when you run this program, you see that all you see is just the result. It does the calculation automatically for you because we supply the values here, right? 3 and 4 are supplied in this example. It's in the code. So there's no reading from the input. So also when you write your print statements, notice that if I do this a couple times, I'm going to copy this. And so if I keep writing this out to the screen, it's going to print that many times, right? 4 times and 5 times and so on, until you reach a pause. And then usually when you do an input read, then the system will pause and it's going to wait until the input is entered. Otherwise, it's just going to hang there forever. Okay. So for example, if I put an input right between, the first and the second here, then it's going to pause there until I issue a input value. So to do that, for example, I'm going to go and create my scanner. I'm going to call it just input, and this is a new object of a scanner object, and it's going to take the system.in. Okay, so I created a scanner object called input, and I'm going to import the scanner utility class. All right, so now I'm going to say right here, we know that input for A is 3. I mean, that's in the code. Okay, so anyway you do in the code, as long as you don't say A is now 5, okay, if I do that, then of course from here on, the total will be different. So it no longer is 7. If I run it again, you see that it's, because I didn't do the total here. So if I do if I do again, total is equal to A plus B, then you'll see that total is no longer 7 because I changed the 3 to a 5, right? So to read data dynamically from the user, or sometimes from a text file or from a database, then you will use the input here. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out, and then I'm going to read an input from here. So I'm going to say A is equal to input dot your next int, right? So your next int is the integer. So it's going to read an input from there and then assign that new value to A. So whatever A was before, if it's 3, if I enter a new value, then it's going to replace that value. Okay, and then here I'm going to issue a new total. And the total is going to be whatever I put in the A, and then B will still be 4. Okay, so if I click and save this, and let me clear my console here, do a right click and then just clear. Now if I run this command, you see that it prints the first line here, lines 12. Line 12 is printed. And now it's going to pass these lines 13 and 14. It's going to ignore those 2 lines because it's just comments. And then now it's reading at line 16 now. It's right here. So actually it's waiting for the input, even though my cursor is here. Again, it depends on whatever IDE you're using. So this is Eclipse, so it's a little bit weird how the cursor is actually blinking on the left here. But typically at this point, if you notice that it's not printing lines 20 through 22 yet because it's stuck at line 18. Okay, it's waiting for an input. Well, how do you know it's waiting for an input? Well, you can't know because you can guess, right, and just do something. But so typically when you don't know, you have to issue an output statement to tell the user what is expected to be input. Okay, so right here, usually right before you issue the input read here, you would say please enter a value, or enter an integer value. Okay, but right now, if since I already know this, if I go ahead and enter a number, let's just say 9. Notice it's in green, just tells you that that's a input from the user. And if I hit enter, now you see that the total for these last threes are the same, because now it's saying 9 plus 4 is 13. Okay, so the last 3 lines here are not executed until you enter the value for the input on line 16. So that's why you need to put an output here to the user to tell the user that I'm expecting an input. You say, please enter an integer value. Okay, so when you do this, then it's waiting for the input from the user, so the user knows. Maybe you can say integer, then press enter, something like that. Okay, be as clear as you can so the user understands what you're trying to do. So I'm going to refresh this again, and I'm going to run this time. Okay, so now you know it's much clearer, right? So please enter integer, then press enter. So if I press 56, and now you see that it works. Okay, so for every input you're expecting to read from the user, you have to tell them what to enter. If you're expecting an integer, you just say it. If you're expecting a character, then just say a single character or a string, then tell them that. All right. So I hope this clears up a little bit of the confusions in the examples in the book. And if you still have any issues and problems, please let me know. Again, depending on what IDE you're using, it might ask you, it might produce some type of warning error saying that you did not close your scanner. Okay. The reason why it said that, because when you run a scanner object, when you create an object like this for a scanner, you're reading an input from the user. Then once you are done using this input, you can close it or remove it from the resources from the system. So to do that, you just basically issue this command close. Okay, and the input is your object you create up here, and then you just close it. And if you don't do that, it's going to keep open in the program, so it's going to consume a lot of resources. Well, the reason is because also I could create another input here, right? I could create a different input, maybe for whatever reason it is. I'm going to say maybe maybe input 2 or something. Okay, you can say input 1 for maybe certain type of character or certain type of data. Input 2 could be something else. And so now I have 2 inputs. Okay, I can have multiple more, and that's going to consume a lot of data. So once you're done, you don't use it anymore for the inputs, then you can close those inputs, and usually either at the end or when you're done reading. So I could just put this here as well, right below line 16 here. Okay, so if you are still struggling, if you have any other questions regarding your inputs, please also shoot me an email. Thank you.